Hey, you here? Here's hoping you are. Welcome to the Paul Leslie Hour, your home of quality interviews more than 1,000 times over. On this episode today, we're delighted to welcome film and television actor and filmmaker Nick Searcy. Yes, Nick Searcy. From the TV series Justified, the same guy seen alongside Nicolas Cage in The Old Way. Nick Searcy's been making motion pictures for a long time. You might remember him from The Days of Thunder, The Prince of Tides, Fried Green Tomatoes, Nell, and you can't forget Castaway, starring Tom Hanks. But what we're here to talk about today is the documentary Searcy has produced and appears in, The War on Truth, directed by Chris Burgard. It's eye-opening, to say the least. The War on Truth pulls back the curtain on J6. Are we supposed to believe everything we've been told about J6? Whatever side of the political spectrum you're on, you're encouraged to watch for unseen footage and unheard stories. Now it's almost time to welcome Nick Searcy. But before we get started, let's hit the old subscribe button. Bing, bing. And now, we're rolling.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure to welcome to Nick Searcy, a name and face you've seen many, many times in your life, an actor, a producer, and last night I had the great opportunity to watch The War on Truth. Very informational, very interesting, and at times very gut-wrenching documentary. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me, Paul. Thanks. Nice to be here.
It's a pleasure. So, Mr. Searcy, can you tell us, when was the first time that you got the inkling that perhaps we had not been told the entire truth about January 6, 2021?
On the evening of January 6, 2021, I had been there that day, and I saw a lot of people praying and singing songs, and I didn't see any violence whatsoever. I didn't see any police. I didn't see anything. And then when I got home that night, of course, and turned on the news, that's all I saw. That's all they showed you. And so that first, right off the bat, it struck me, okay, there's something they're not telling us here. Why are they not telling the whole story? And then when they started really breaking down people's doors, conducting 6 a.m. raids on people who've never been arrested before for anything in their lives, people that normally you would just give them a phone call and go, we'd like to talk to you. But no, they were treating them like terrorists and serial killers or something. So at that point, about 2 months after, I just started thinking we need to sort of look into this. And so that's kind of how it all came about.
Well, as someone who was there yourself, what are your most vivid memories from that day? And it is a day, no matter what side of the political aisle you're on, it was a historic day. So what do you remember?
The thing I remember most about the time that I was there was how happy everybody was. I mean, the thing that people forget is that what everybody went to Washington to support was the process that was going on in the House and Senate. We were glad that Ted Cruz was standing up and challenging the vote. We wanted it to go back to the states for 10 days to verify it. So everybody was pretty upbeat, at least at the beginning of the day. And my most vivid memories are like laughing with people, a lady walking around with a jam box on a roller that was playing "We're Not Going to Take It Anymore," and people were singing that and waving flags. And I mean, I just remember it being kind of a joyful, happy day. And granted, I was on the side of the building closer to the Supreme Court where not much of the action happened. And we would hear things. I heard some, pops and things that sounded like, what's that? What's going on the other side of the building? But I never saw any violence whatsoever.
And having watched the film last night, The War on Truth, and just for everybody out there, they can go to thewarontruthmovie.com for more information. It's a very informational movie. I mean, there's lots and lots of facts. It's not a propaganda piece by any means. What was one of the more surprising pieces of information that you uncovered as a producer and as someone appearing in this movie?
Well, the one thing that really stands out to me when I think back, I mean, most of the movie is the personal story of these people whose lives have been ruined by the Department of Justice and the FBI, which I find incredibly. It's an outrage. It's an outrage. These people should not be treated that way. But the one piece of information that I sort of found really interesting that I didn't know before was how Ray Epps was escorted out of the crowd at a certain point before all the violence started. He was there at the first breach of the barricades near the Capitol. And there's a shot in there where you see the whole crowd behind the barricades. You see Ray Epps come in with a group of people with this huge Trump flag that they were carrying. And then at a certain point, a flare or a smoke pop goes off in the crowd on one side, and 8 guys come in and march Ray Epps out of there. 4 in front, 4 behind, very military style. They get him out of there right before the Capitol Police start firing munitions into the crowd. And they did that in order to incite the crowd and cause whatever violence happened that day. So that seeing Ray Epps escorted out of there, I mean, there's been a lot of talk about, is he CIA? Is he a confidential informant? What is he? I don't know what he is, because criminals are good at hiding their tracks sometimes. But I know that he was escorted out of there by 8 military guys, and I want to know why.
It's a very good question, and it is a fascinating part of the film, and especially the highlighting, which I went back and looked and fact-checked it. It's absolutely true. Adam Kinzinger has done more to kind of protect this guy, Ray Epps. If you listen to his language, Ray Epps is like a great American hero or something. Why is that?
Well, they're protecting their narrative. I mean, Darren Beatty talks about Kinzinger and, crybaby Kinzinger in our movie. And he says, that Kinzinger is actually gives a more vigorous defense of Ray Epps than Ray Epps' own attorney does. So what is going on? What the January 6th committee did was lie to protect the narrative. And the narrative has to be January 6th was a bunch of violent white supremacist, racist Trump supporters who went there to stop the proceedings in the House and Senate. Which is it's a total lie. We went there to ensure that the proceedings in the House and Senate would go forward. The only people that would want to stop the challenge of the vote would be Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats. That's why they didn't call the National Guard. That's why the Capitol Police let people in there. They wanted something that they could pin on Trump so that they could stop the proceeding and then say, everything's too dangerous. We've got to certify the election right away.
You having been there and also having made this film, you just mentioned a number of things, but what do you think the biggest mistake the government has made on January 6th?
Well, the thing that is really hard to wrap your mind around is that they didn't make a mistake on January 6th. This was deliberate. They deliberately did not call the National Guard. They deliberately did not protect the Capitol building. It would have been easy to do. Trump asked for the National Guard. Nancy Pelosi and Marion Bowser, the mayor of D.C., would not permit it, would not confirm it. And they had to. That was a chain of command. They wanted this to happen. And frankly, just between you and I and everybody else that's watching, they wanted this to be worse. They wanted a bloodbath. There's a man that we interview in the movie called Tarek Johnson, TK Johnson. He was a Capitol policeman on that day. And he was repeatedly radioing his superiors saying, we've got to clear the House and Senate. There are people inside the Capitol building, and if they come in during a live Senate hearing like this, there's going to have to be gunfire. We're going to have to open fire. And he could never get an answer from his superiors. And so finally, by his own volition, just on his own, he decided, I'm clearing the House and Senate. This is too dangerous. And if he hadn't done that, as Rep. Troy Nell says in the movie, if he hadn't done that, there's no telling what would have happened. But that's in my belief, that's exactly what they wanted. They wanted mass casualties.
And all of this information, again, for all the viewers out there, the warontruthmovie.com, you can see it for yourself. It's a very factual, very fascinating, incredible film. I'm so glad I got a chance to watch it. It occurs to me, I'm a movie buff. One of my all-time favorites is fried green tomatoes. And there's a lot of movies that you've been in, but what occurs to me is you could have a real, comfortable, easy go. You've been so outspoken on these issues. January 6th is probably the most, for leftists, it's the most inflammatory topic of our time. What have you given up to make a movie like this? What does this cost you?
Well, I don't know. You can't put a real, I don't know all the things that maybe somebody says, I'm not hiring that guy because of this or that, or, he's a white supremacist insurrectionist or whatever. I don't really know. I know that, I directed the movie Nell, which came out in 2018, which, was definitely the left really went after that movie. I continued to work. I continue to work to this day. I did a mini series that's coming out on Netflix this year called The Perfect Couple. I don't know why. I do have a feeling that I'd probably be working more if I hadn't done all this. But at a certain point in my life, I just decided, I'm going to do the things that I care about, because that's, that to me, that's what gives life meaning is, I didn't go into this necessarily to make money. I became an actor because I loved it, and I wanted to tell stories. And so I've continued to try to tell the stories that are meaningful to me, and participate in the projects that are meaningful to me. And I will continue to do that. I do know that after January 6th, my agent called me up on a Saturday night, which he never did, the Saturday after January 6th, and he said, did you go in the building, Nick? I just have to know. Did you go in the building? I said, no. Why? And he said there was a casting director in California who was passing around a picture of some guy in a mask that was inside the Capitol building and telling everyone that it was me and they should never hire me again.
Oh, wow.
And so I said, that's not me. It's obviously not me. Who's doing this? And when he told me the casting director's name, it was an old friend of mine. It was somebody I'd known for 30 years, somebody who had my phone number. And I wrote them and said, why did you do this? Why didn't you just ask me? That's obviously not me. And she said, oh, I'll write everybody and take it back and whatever. And I was like, well, too late now. I don't know what damage you've done, but you've definitely done some damage. And like I say, I can't put a number on it. I don't know how much it's cost me, but in all honesty, I've gained more by meeting these people, by spending time with the January 6th people. It's been more rewarding to me than maybe anything that I've ever done. I mean, when you see the movie, that's one of the things I'm proudest about The War on Truth, is that we really humanize these people that have been totally demonized and lied about by the government, by the media, their mouthpieces in the media, and it's heartbreaking, as I'm sure you experienced. Their stories are so painful. This should not be happening in the United States of America.
It's really astonishing, and it is one of the best things about the movie is the opportunity. You really meet these people where they live, and you see some of these people, most of them, just great, great folks. You can just tell, and what's happened to them, it's just tragic.
And, most of these people, by and large, these are Christian. A lot of them are former veterans. A lot of them are middle class, low, even maybe, close to poverty level. And so the government goes after people like this because they know they cannot fight back. They bankrupt them. They know they can't mount a vigorous defense. And so they go after them with these plea deals. They pile up these charges saying, oh, just plead to this one count, this one felony, and you'll only do a few months. And see, then they just rack it up. See, we caught another one. Look, another terrorist admits it, So this is all done to serve their narrative. And they are basically cynically destroying these people's lives to advance their political party.
Nick Searcy, what do you think people will say about January 6th in 20 years?
They will say that it was a government setup, that the CIA and the intelligence agencies had been doing things like this all over the world, practicing all over the world on other governments, and then tried to do it on the American people. And they will say, if the right people write the history books, of course, that the administration in power, the Joe Biden administration, and the Democrat machine that was in place even before Biden got there, that the Democrat machine was responsible for trying to do this in order to establish one-party rule in the United States of America so that they could never be stopped on any agenda item they wanted to advance.
How successful do you think January 6th has been in terms of propping up the Democrat message, propping up Joe Biden as someone that they want to reelect, and discrediting Trump? Has it been successful? Do you think most people have bought into it?
I don't think most people have bought into it, but I think it has been successful in that it hasn't been stopped. They're continuing to arrest people. They're continuing to persecute the people of January 6th. And they're doing this for not just to punish people for trespassing or some little infraction that they committed, but to send a message to everybody else. It's fear and intimidation. They are trying to terrorize the citizens of America into never protesting anything they do ever again. And I think in that respect, they have been successful. This is raw power. This is not, a majority of people agree with what's being done to Trump or the January 6th people. A majority of the people may not be paying attention, but I don't think they agree with it. And if you look back through history, no tyrannical regime, communist, dictatorship, nothing has ever been done by a majority vote of the people. It's always a small minority that takes power and then wields that power so that they can never be removed. Again, that's what's happened in California with the Democrats. You can't get them out. They want to do that in the rest of the country. That's what's coming. That's what this is a warm-up for. And in my opinion, it's been successful because it hasn't been stopped.
Do you think that with all the lawfare and all the stuff that they've got going against Trump, do you think that they'll keep him off the ballot? And do you think that the Democrats, are they really going to go forward with Biden? Are we going to see a rematch, or what do you think is going to happen?
I don't think they'll be able to take Trump off the ballot. I think what will happen is if they don't remove Biden, you will know that they believe they have it sewed up, that they believe they have it stolen again. Because in my opinion, they stole it the first time. Why wouldn't they steal it again? They got away with it. So if they keep him on the ticket, an obviously incompetent, decrepit old man who really couldn't run a lemonade stand, much less run a country, if they keep him on the ticket, you can be assured that they believe they have enough corruption in place to steal the election. Because I don't think there's any way that Biden actually beats Trump in an election. I don't think he beat him the first time. So I don't think there's any way they do it this time. And if they keep him on the ticket, they're planning to steal it.
Everybody out there, the warontruthmovie.com. Be sure and watch this. You'll thank me, and you'll thank Nick Searcy, and you'll thank all the filmmakers. What do you want somebody to get out of the experience of watching this documentary?
I want people, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, I just want you to see who these people are that the government is calling terrorists. See who these people really are and ask yourself, do you think this is how these people should be treated? Do you think this is fair? Do you think this is justice? Because to me, that's the most moving part. Families being destroyed, people losing their businesses, people losing their ability to be employed because of the way they've been demonized by the media. They've become pariahs in their communities. These are people who, these are, church deacons. These are the kind of people you would leave your pets with if you had to go out of town. You would let them babysit your children. These are kind, decent, upstanding Americans, and they are being called terrorists because basically people who love America, are the enemies of this administration. They're not worried about foreign enemies. That's why they don't close the border. The enemy they are worried about is their political opposition in the United States of America, and that's why these people are being targeted.
There's all these labels that have been put on you: filmmaker, actor. It looks like from behind you there, you don't mind having a drink now and then. How would you define Nick Searcy? Who is the man?
Well, I don't know. I define myself as a husband and a father primarily, and an actor. That's really what I set out to be. All the rest of it has been things that I, picked up and wanted to do along the way. But I decided when I was 12 years old, I really wanted to be a film actor. And I've been able to do other things. I've made documentaries. I've directed feature films. I've done wrestling matches. I've managed a wrestler during a live wrestling match. I did a little bit of stand-up comedy. I've been able to, fortunately, I've been able to do a lot of different things, but all of it flows from the fact that, I became an actor. So that's really what I am. I'm an actor who has other hobbies.
And you got to sit in for Rush Limbaugh at one point.
I did.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I did. And, people were asking me at the time, that was 2017. That was even before Nell had come out, I believe. And I was worried that it might hurt my career if I guest host for Rush Limbaugh, and then I was talking to my friend Adam Baldwin, who's a fellow conservative actor out in Hollywood. And he's like, you know what? If you don't tell anybody in Hollywood that you guest hosted for Rush Limbaugh, they won't know, because they don't listen to us. They don't listen to anything we say. So,
right.
And he was kind of right. Nobody really knew.
Well, I always like to leave the last word to my guest. Totally open-ended. What would you say to anybody out there who's tuned in with us?
I would say stop trusting what you hear on television. Stop trusting what they're telling you, because they're lying. They've been lying about everything for years. They lied about Trump. They lied about COVID. They lied about January 6th. They continue to lie. And that's the hardest thing for people to wrap your head around, is the fact that all of these people are in on it. But they are. And it doesn't even have to be that it's some big conspiracy. A lot of these people that are in media now come out of these Ivy League institutions where they've been brainwashed into socialism is good and Republicans are bad and this is a racist, horrible country. So it's not like they have to get on the phone every morning and decide what they're going to say. They're all programmed. They've all been brainwashed. And the ones that aren't, you see what happens to them. If a journalist speaks out or tries to do something out of the box, they're just silenced. They're just gotten rid of. They even got rid of Tucker Carlson, for goodness sake, the most popular guy on cable TV. So stop putting any faith in what they tell you on television. It won't hurt you to watch it, but don't believe it, because they are lying to you. And my movie is called The War on Truth for a reason. They are battling against the truth, because if the truth gets out, they will be exposed for what they are.
Very well put. Very well put. One micro question. What is your drink of choice?
Well, I probably, when I drink it, it's usually vodka. I don't drink a lot, but sometimes I'll have a nice bourbon for the taste of it.
Okay. All right. Well, Nick Searcy, great movie. TheWarOnTruthMovie.com. Thank you so much for spending time with us. It's a great pleasure.
Thanks for having me, Paul.
All right. Until next time.
Okay.
We thank you and appreciate you dropping in for the Paul Leslie Hour today. You can help the Paul Leslie Hour in our mission to provide independent media content like this by visiting www.thepaulleslie.com/support. We truly thank you. This is your announcer speaking. Performance of The Entertainer intro song and Corina outro song, courtesy of John Primorano. Well, that's it for today. So until next time, be safe and be good.